there was a conversation this week. The internet in Afghanistan went down,
Yeah.
and there were some old Ethereum tweets that came up, and some new ones about censorship resistance. That's part of your story. Um, I don't know. Would they? Maybe they do want to use DoubleZero for censorship resistance purposes.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely fallback options. I think the
Yeah.
challenge is DoubleZero is not a residential internet service, right? We're not
Yeah.
coming into people's houses, in part because that's an incredibly regulated space, and in part because it's a, unfathomably expensive thing to do to run fiber to everyone's house. And so there are areas where this can help. I mean, if you have a authoritarian government that turns off all of the internet, including the local internet and just all of the connectivity and all the cell towers, DoubleZero is not going to do much. You basically need Starlink at that point. And they're probably going to jam Starlink too, because that's actually quite doable. So it really depends on what you're trying to prevent against. Now, in a situation where like truly the entire internet of Afghanistan goes offline, like, okay, maybe that's a bit of an extreme one. But you look at something like Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and a lot of the internet did go down. But what did not go down were sort of critical communication channels and private fiber for the most part. And one of the nice things here is the kind of space DoubleZero is operating in is usually a space reserved for enterprises and governments. There's not a lot of like projects that have access to private dedicated fiber. It's mostly something that's used by big businesses and governments. And because of that, it tends to have its own carve outs, and it tends to be treated much more as a mission critical system. You can sort of think about, back in the day, back in 2020, I think it was, when a bunch of different social media networks were getting, upstart networks were getting censored and removed from things like Amazon Web Services, and Facebook was blocking access to them. There was never a call to like Verizon do deep packet inspections on every traffic that comes from this thing and block this web server, like at the base layer infrastructure level. It is treated a little bit more like electricity, where it's like, you can do crime that uses electricity, but the power company is not usually at fault for that. And that's kind of one of the things here is the lower level we get in the stack, the more socially expensive it is for the government to start interfering with that type of traffic. And so I would call that soft censorship resistance. It's not hard censorship resistance, but it's much easier for a government to turn off, to instruct someone to turn off access to a website or to talk to a residential internet service provider and say, hey, you got to block this thing, than it is for them to like go into a data center with a giant pair of pliers and start cutting fiber.